proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
Appearances can be deceptive.
Tom, I was just speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters in this world.
There, we're in a tight spot.
Hello, welcome to Framework. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Hey, we got a big one today, man.
Yeah, we do. This one has been looming large over the entire Coen-Oscopy series since we started, really over the entire podcast. It's one they kind of...
Yeah, it's like one of those.
They say that nobody ever sees what's coming, but I've seen this one coming. I pre-visaged it.
Yeah.
We were doing Tarantino.
Well, I mean, who doesn't want to talk about this movie? People like us, we want to really talk about it. It's one of the best movies to talk about, right? No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, I'd say if there's any reason that I was trepidatious about it, it's that it is intimidating. It's imposing. There are parts of this that, having watched the movie 15 times, I have not fully sorted out in my head. And that does, when you're a podcaster, casting yourself in the role of a critic, you're supposed to have everything figured out, and I'm supposed to be able to explain everything neatly. The great thing about great art, and particularly about this story, is how it engages with unknowability, the ineffability, how it resists being simply dissected and solved.
Yeah, yes, it does. But at the same time, I think what makes this movie special, maybe, is that it is such a great communicator of what it's about, ultimately. This is the kind of film that can and has really just shut people out, pissed people off, turned audiences on it. But I think it's, at this point, that's all forgotten. I think anyone who watches this now kind of just has to admit it's sort of a transcendent experience to watch this film. Maybe because it communicates its complicated ideas so clearly and so cleanly, and it's really hard to walk away from this without a very clear understanding of what it's about, even as it is oblique and mysterious in ways.
Well, it's confounding deliberately, and it sort of, it does, you're right, it expresses itself very cleanly in the end. For as frustrating as this story is, movie and in book form, and as anticlimactic as it is, it's impossible to mistake that is a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
And that is what I think, more than being confounding or anticlimactic, people respond negatively to that in stories more because of the sense that there is no purpose behind it. Mm-hmm. Whereas this is a movie that is very purposefully about purposelessness. In a way that's... It's hard to miss. And we talked about that with some of the other movies. Like, I cited this way back, where Seven is kind of the ultimate example of a movie, a crime movie with sort of grander philosophical pretensions to it. But also, like, those are presented so clearly and cleanly that the cheap seats can't possibly mistake what that movie's about. The Ernest Hemingway quote at the end is so on the nose that, you get that. This is less on the nose than that, but it does communicate itself strongly enough that you, like you said, you come away with a sense of it, even if you can't explain exactly why does he do a coin flip. Why does the car wreck happen the way it does? What does that portend?
Mm-hmm. It demands to be parsed. It demands to be considered, and I mean, the easiest way to describe this is it's a thriller for 90 minutes and then turns into an art film for 40 minutes or something like. But it is that severe a corner turn, a record scratch that you're just immediately flung into a different kind of movie, and you have to have an idea why. I mean, you can be pissed off about it, but you're still going to be like, well, shit, I disagree
with that, actually.
Okay.
That the turn is that sharp, because I don't think this is as hard of a turn as, say, Psycho or Audition or something, where there's there's a very clear mark where we veer off, and now we're doing a different movie.
Well, Psycho, I mean, I definitely thought of Psycho watching this film this time.
For sure.
I mean, it's, it's in that lineage for sure. I mean, there's still an off-ramp into conventional resolution there, though, because we've had Tommy Lee Jones the whole way through.
Well, that's what I mean. We because we open with Tommy Lee Jones and his narration, there is more of a through line there. It does feel of a piece, and I think that is something that helps its reception over time. You're saying that when people have revisited this, it is, especially once you've been through that hard, falling off that cliff 3/4 of the way through the movie, where our protagonist has suddenly gone off screen. Then you come back to it and see, oh, okay, it was sort of always framed around Tommy Lee Jones. It definitely, again, that gives it a sense of purpose of design, even as it's engaging with nihilism and ideas of that there is no purpose or no center.
It's also great. I mean, it's just this first 10 minutes here is just us trying to like describe the shape of this thing. It's just so hard to reckon with. It's such a gateway drug kind of movie to complicated films, because it's so clear and it's in how it's saying what it is that even if it is difficult to put into words, this is the sort of thing that makes you want to watch movies that are tougher. And I think that's sort of the like Zodiac maybe, or I don't know.
Zodiac, is that a 2007 movie?
You know what? I believe it is. Yeah.
This was an interesting year, man.
One of the best.
Like so No Country won Best Picture, I believe Best Director.
Yeah.
Best Adapted Screenplay and Supporting Actor for Javier Bardem.
Correct.
Which is, as deserving a supporting actor win as ever has occurred, I suppose. I'm
fait accompli, really.
I'm amazed. I watched it last week, and I'm thinking, yeah, he deserved that. Also, maybe the third best performance in this movie for my money.
That's really interesting. I can't put him. I mean, I think he's the best one. I don't know. It's pretty remarkable, man.
I guess I'm more impressed at this point because it's so, Shigeru is a Halloween costume, and it is a performance sort of, it has more shtick to it. Whereas
it does.
Brolin and Tommy Lee Jones are just doing such naturalistic, incredible work without sort of the, the easy showcase moments.
Well, those easy showcase moments are what wins Oscars. And it's also what lodges a character in a popular consciousness. You could well see an Anton Chigurh Halloween costume in 2024. You're probably not going to see a Sheriff Tom Bell Halloween costume.
Probably not. You could do a fun moss of like just cowboy boots and like a hospital robe,
sure. his border disguise, maybe
with a Templeton Eagles starter jacket over it.
But look, he's got this coin toss scene about a half hour into the movie, something like that. He wins the Oscar right there. The Oscar is a done deal right then on. Everything else in the movie is just running up points on the scoreboard. It's that, extreme and obvious of a slam dunk Oscar performance.
Okay, that's fair enough. The only thing I mentioned, something was going on in 2007.
Right.
We thought, I guess, we're deep into like everybody's kind of accepted the sort of pointlessness and gravity of the mistake in Iraq. We are that there's also this, I guess, is that 2007 is the ultimate wrist cutter year at the Oscars. Like some of the notable nominees other than No Country, we got There Will Be Blood, Atonement, In the Valley of Elah, which Tommy Lee Jones was nominated for it, while also being nominated for this movie. Eastern Promises, Michael Clayton, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, Gone Baby Gone, one of the lighter movies, probably Into the Wild, about dying of exposure in a van and
that's a good movie.
Outback of Africa, of Alaska. That's a rough crop.
Mm-hmm. And Zodiac, pictures. As you said, not nominated. Or was it nominated for Best Picture in the expanded field? No, this would be before that. No, it was absolutely
the expansion would come next year.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight brought the wrist cutter to the superhero movie.
Well, yes. I mean, look, it was good movie times, man. Maybe we're going to get some good movie times coming up here. That might be something.
I feel like we've been telling ourselves that since 2016, and unfortunately, I think just the turns of the industry are such that we're not really producing in the same way anymore. Like, maybe we'll get some good streaming miniseries out of it. Is more the
fuck. Okay. Yeah,
sorry,
that wrist cutting. Yeah. All right. So
too depressing this early on. We got to build her up to that level.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had a year since 2007 that is as just obviously a banner year in cinema. But I hadn't really put together, as you say, how tonally similar and how kind of just over it that crop was. That's a grim bunch of movies. It was still invigorating though at the time, I guess, because those are so great.
I mean, like, one of the lesser ones, like Gone Baby Gone, that's an incredible movie that doesn't really crack the top 5 of that list of, horrible nihilistic movies. That
excellent film.
I mean, again, I'm using nihilism a little too broadly there because a big part of the Coen-Oscopy has been litigating what exactly that means.
Well, this is very dark. This is one of the main works that makes that a big part of their deal, obviously, and I'm sure we'll have a nihilism corner later on here.
Sure.
So something's in the air. This rises to the top of the batch, at least in the Oscars, and I think probably in general, I think that's correct. I mean,
well, there's time has borne that out, I think, to a large degree, but there's a question then of, is there a chicken or the egg there? Is that partly because it won the Oscar? If There Will Be Blood had gotten Best Picture, would it have edged out No Country over time? I kind of think no, but I was in the tank for No Country right out of the gate.
I don't think so either. I think There Will Be Blood is a very, I really like that film. It's not one to just watch. It's it could easily be a one and done. It's sort of Kubrickian in its sort of coldness and and just sort of inaccessibility. You can watch that and be like, yeah, it's a hell of a performance, and that can be all you take away from it. This is a lot more user friendly, and as I was reflecting as we watched it now, I think an incredibly influential film.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it turns out, like, I mean, you could always say, like, well, Breaking Bad was kind of doing a Coens thing. No, they were doing a No Country for Old Men thing. Like, this is the movie that show is emulating more than any other.
I thought of Breaking Bad a lot. I mean, and Better Call Saul by extension.
Right.
Watching it this time, I know also I have heard Bill Hader discussing this movie and talking about how he was a big influence. He's a great talker.
Movies. God, love it.
But he cites specifically how, like, when they're doing Barry, which is a show that you and I both think is underrated, and how the way this movie does action was a huge influence on how they tried to do it there. Which is, say, not a lot of score a lot of the times, and so. But with Breaking Bad, especially, so much of that is just process of watching smart people in incredibly difficult corners that they're trapped in, working their way out with sort of like MacGyvering their way through with what's on hand, and not really stopping to explain themselves a ton.
I mean, that opening sequence with Llewellyn Moss coming upon the handoff gone bad is just basically that's like a show Bible for Breaking Bad almost. Like, almost every scene seems to be just a version of that. All the big tension action sequences that you remember from Breaking Bad, they're kind of just pulling from that playbook, or many of the other scenes that follow. The briefcase and the ducts, or anything you want to pick, really.
I mean, they made. I don't think they necessarily cast Jonathan Banks to be their Llewellyn Moss figure, but they sort of after that character's like initial appearance, they more and more revamped him to just be like, well, why don't we just make him more and more of what Moss is in this movie?
Better Call Saul. That's like, there's probably like 3 hours full of just Jonathan Banks silently solving problems in Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But, tracking back to There Will Be Blood again, like, to me, I think I've told this to you before, but to me is an incredible towering performance with, some pieces of a movie trailing behind it. It's nothing in that movie can stand up to the performance or like hang with it. This being more of a three-hander, I suppose, even though the three hands like never shake. There's like one phone call between two of them is the extent of the direct interactions. between any of the three main characters, but they still feel so intertwined and so vital and so part of the same story. That
Three sides of the same coin. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And that is a testament to the Coens, I think, and their craft.
And Cormac McCarthy. I mean, considering how often we've invoked this movie as we talked about the Coens films, considering how many of the things that we associate with them are on full display here, from just like quick visual motifs, character types to, full on philosophical movements, the lone biker of the apocalypse from Raising Arizona, holy shit. Here's a 20-year later metastasized version of it. It's all from the McCarthy book, though. Like this is one of the purest adaptations I've ever seen. The book is exactly the movie.
Their joke on it was that when they were to describe the process of adapting this, they said that it was a two-hander effort because one of us had to hold the book open and the other person had to type the pages onto the computer. And that, when you read the book, it is very much like almost scene by scene. Yeah, there's some stuff that they cut out. There's some compression, and they did that very well. But the dialogue is
almost all of it.
In a lot of cases, almost all of it, not all of it, in some crucial points. But it's not just that. Like, I'm going to actually read you a quick excerpt here from like the opening scene of Shigur killing the deputy after the opening narration. And this is the book's description of that murder. They went to the floor. The deputy was trying to get his hand inside the chain, but he could not. Shigur lay there pulling back on the bracelets with his knees between his arms and his face averted. The deputy was flailing wildly, and he began to walk sideways over the floor in a circle, kicking over the wastebasket, kicking over the chair across the room. He was gurgling and bleeding from the mouth. He was strangling on his own blood. Shigur only hauled the harder. That's not just copying the lines of dialogue. Like, that could be just the stage direction of that scene, right? Yeah,
that could be like a text to word version of it's. I mean, the movie's almost just an automatic approximation of that visually, the way you type in an AI, except it's shot beautifully.
Yeah, an AI would make it dumber somehow, but that is. I mean, it really is like
right
word for word.
Does the black shoe scuff marks on the linoleum, is that a line of text in that scene? Because
it's the
such
walking,
a striking image. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, flailing wildly and walking sideways around the floor in a circle is kind of like, it's getting close enough. I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. I mean, I cut out a couple sentences there just because reading the book into a mic is not the best podcast.
Sure.
But
the point is, you made the point though. Yeah,
they know what to highlight. Yeah, and what's the most chilling part of that to you? Is it the boot scraping, or is it like the frenzied ecstasy look on Shigur's?
He's sort of got a Kubrick stare. Yeah. I think it's the scuff marks always stuck with me. It's the world working in the way you're familiar with it, kind of in this extreme circumstance. And it's the sort of like little tidbit or detail that you would fixate on if you walked in and found that scene, it tells so much story. Yeah.
Also, watching it happen, it is like watching a prey animal that's been caught by a snake or it's in the mouth of a predator and has not quite expired, but is just kicking its legs feebly, uselessly.
Mm-hmm. I honestly, there are moments, I think, when the Shigur performance threatens to turn into sort of, like movie sociopath kind of, like heightened, here's serial killer has his quirks. I mean, Bardem is kind of like refuses to allow that to ever actually happen.
He's got so many affectations of that.
That's the thing. Like it would be very easy for this character to come off as sort of phony, Yeah,
and, the haircut dares it too, right out of the gate. But it's the fact that he's got like 3 signature weapons if you count the quarter, which is the Two-Face shtick from Batman.
Yeah.
But then he's got the stun gun everybody remembers and the silent shotgun, which everybody remembers. Like,
yeah, amazing weapons in this. The silent shotgun. I always forget about that one, but man, that's just one of the coolest things. It's so terrifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this too in relation to Heat, this week. Another movie we talked about at great length here. And I think
another one of those gateway complicated films, actually.
Definitely so.
Yeah.
But also one that sets a standard. Like Heat is the gold standard for realism in crime thrillers.
Yeah.
And realism as it relates to process, I think. And then I think what No Country sets a standard for is like artsiness and like the philosophical pretensions that can be layered over your chase movie to make like a potboiler story just be really about something, man. And nobody's ever done the realism, like, the on the ground, procedural stuff as well as Heat. I don't think anybody's ever pulled off the art house crime thriller better than this. You'll get some movies like Hell or High Water, I think is a good example of sort of pulling from both the realism well and the philosophy well of these movies at about like 75% strength of those. And that's still enough to make a really damn good movie. Like, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's terrific. And it's very much kind of in the jet stream of this, though, like a lot of stuff. Almost all those Taylor Sheridan projects, I believe Yellowstone is basically, the further evolution of this kind of thing.
Well, yes. Sicario's got this all over it.
Yep.
And Hell or High Water, I think you could feel him like kind of wanting to make the Jeff Bridges sheriff not the Tommy Lee Jones sheriff.
Yes, that's exactly right. Here's the way he's different. He's he's explicitly racist.
Right. But you can't escape that comparison. I mean, and the other thing, so comparing to The Old We Blood again, like that is a movie that is epic with a capital E. Wears that on its sleeve. This movie feels absolutely like an epic. It is mythic, but it is 2 hours long, man. It is 122 minutes. Like,
I love it.
This movie is shorter than Pretty Woman. It's shorter than Batman and Robin, a League of Their Own, Midnight Run, like The Conjuring Part 2. I could go on. There's a lot of movies that are shorter than that do not feel nearly as epic as it does.
Yeah, it's frustrating sometimes that that length does not equal gravitas. It seems to be a lesson that we are like running away from. Right? Like we're getting worse at understanding that than we used to. I think Moana 2 is likely a longer film than this. It's just I don't understand why this is how we are now.
It's
how long is
not.
Moana?
It's an hour 40. It's
more like God damn it! Okay, it feels longer. Let me put it that way.
Well, kids' cartoons. Disney at least like understands their child-minded stuff to know that they can't do a 2.5 hour cartoon. Whereas superhero movies films think they have to.
That's. I wonder how long Kraven the Hunter is. Check that one. How long? I bet that's longer than No Country for Old Men.
I would. Yes,
I don't know.
I would bet almost anything. Oh, yep. 2 hours, 7 minutes. Beat it by 5. And that
awesome.
That feels restrained and demure at this point for a Spider-Man spin-off villain movie.
20 minutes to get to Kraven the Hunter. That's pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, the point being the economy is amazing, especially considering how discursive this can be.
Yeah, the fact that you said it feels like it shifts into being a totally different movie after the big crime movie is over. And that, I was stunned even to pull this again, watch it to pull this up to watch for the 13th and 14th time this week. I was really shocked. I was like, I could have sworn this was a 2.5 hour movie, but it is not. We should probably start describing what this movie is.
It's real easy to describe. It's a briefcase full of money movie.
That is true.
It's guy finds money. Am I going to keep it? Am I going to run? Yeah. And a guy chases him. That's it.
Yes. And then a lawman hunts the hunter. That's it.
Yeah. Everyone's looking for the guy with the briefcase full of money. And it's the most standard thriller premise you can imagine. There's been dozens of films like this. Some of them have been excellent. It's an incredible engine for a movie. You found money. What do you do? And it's an immediate in for an audience. And there's always going to be, another shoe to drop. In this case, it's immediately. And, I think the Coens have done a few movies that would could kind of be described as this at this point. It's it's regular movie stuff.
It's certainly their fourth briefcase full of money in one of their movies.
Jeez. Okay. A Simple Plan is the one I always thought of before this.
Yeah, but there's this. Well, I guess in Big Lebowski, the money's never in the satchel.
It's similarly, it's a trope, really.
But it is in Fargo. The Lady Killers has one too. What's interesting to me in all of these movies, the treasure. I mean, you could kind of throw a Brother Where Art Thou into this in an oblique way too, but in the end, the treasure always kind of goes up in smoke. It never.
That's not just Coens. That's how these movies end. Generally.
The treasure is Sierra Madre, I suppose, like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, but they seem very committed to that. I mean, Fargo goes out of its way to establish that nobody actually ends up with that money. And here it's just unclear. I mean, the book makes it clear what Sugar does with the money after he recovers it, but here it's not even made totally explicit that he has it.
Right.
And I just watching the movie, I would think that it suggests he kept it for himself, although the book says he did return it.
What, to the drug dealers? What?
Yeah, but he killed them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is that a thing in the book? I have read the book. I don't remember all the details of it. Like, is he still just a contractor throughout the course of because he definitely seemed to just be on his own in the film. Like, he kills those guys, kills Stephen Root later. Basically, anyone he has a scene with, he kills. So I take it he's after the money for himself. And knowing this guy as much as we do, I'm still kind of like, what does he use fucking money for? I doubt he travels much. What's the appeal for him? And that's just sort of one of those cool enigmas about Chigurh ultimately.
Yeah. Well, there's some interest in the book. Maybe we'll get there at the end of of this. I guess the other thing to establish here is this is a period piece, right? It's set in the year 1980. And I mean, it feels so timeless to me, despite being a period piece. Like, this could have taken place in 2007.
Or 1960. Or,
1955, yeah.
Yeah, basically, I don't know. I mean, is there any juice that he's a boomer? I guess there's a little there,
I mean, there's some context with Vietnam and World War II, I guess, being...
Well, he's not really a boomer, though. He's earlier than that.
Yeah.
His kid would be a boomer.
But, yeah, I mean, it's part of the character that Moss is a Vietnam veteran and that Sheriff Bell was a World War II veteran.
Right.
To that extent, I guess it matters. But I just mean, when you're watching this scene by scene, like... No. It doesn't have an 80s soundtrack or 80s fashions. Like, it feels timeless. I'll tell you, the thing that dates it now more than anything is not the 80s-ness, it's the 2007-ness of it. Because it's
some of the filters, sure.
Pre-internet movie.
Well,
or pre-social media.
Right. I mean, it's one of the best ways around all the difficulties that social media creates for the thriller is just to set it before social media. That's easy. I mean, in this case, they'd have to, break their necks trying to twist it into a modern story, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can do a lot of the same stuff. I mean, involving cell phones, it complicates things because it is partly a horror movie too. And we've, people have talked a great deal about how hard it is to incorporate cell phones into horror movies. I think you still get around that everybody here, both the hunter and hunted, don't want to be easily tracked. So maybe they're explicitly avoiding that.
I mean, you could even stage these sequences similarly using social media. Personal Shopper, the Kristen Stewart film, kind of does a version of that. That's very interesting. It's a good film. I'm odd to compare now that I think of it, but it is doing sort of real time connecting and avoiding and thriller sequences based around text messaging. So, you could, but it would be a different film.
What I'm getting at, and I don't want to make the entire podcast about this, but part of the way that it feels of a different time is how apolitical it is, and the people are. It feels like if this were put in a more modern day, these Texan, salt of the earth types wouldn't be as friendly to strangers. Like, we wouldn't get through all these interactions without some more overt racism. There'd be Alex Jones blaring from the motel clerk's desk at some point. Like, the racism against Mexicans that is here would be much more intense. The border patrol would be a bigger factor. I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, having that context, in 2024, actually kind of just goes to the point of the film. It kind of goes to the souring of American life. It's just sort of, it's getting darker and angrier and, and more clannish and isolated, even as we have these connecting tools. So you're kind of just filling in the blanks a little when it comes to that stuff, or at least I was.
Yeah, I guess the way I'm placing that currently, it connected a lot more to technological issues, and this movie is not about technology. It is about the progression of time, I suppose, and history and generational change and conflict, but not really manifested in technology.
Well, that is the interesting thing, is like Tom Bell, being a member of the greatest generation. And, those are the heroes that we look up to in a certain sense, certainly the boomers and a lot of our media storytelling kind of, the greatest generation, the World War II veterans, the heroes, that made America this place of mass prosperity for 50 years. They're like, even he is kind of just like, man, I don't know how my parents would have handled this. There was a fucking man. Like, it's always about looking back. It's always about the time that didn't exist but felt like it existed, and that you're chasing it. And it's just like, how do we get back to that state of innocence?
Well, and it's something that's inherent to the character of America, is that it's a country. Its history is steeped in violence, but also myth making around that, and that there's always a tension between those that manifests as people get older, especially for the old men. They realize,
my dad was carrying the horn of fire. Shit, why don't I have a horn of fire?
Yeah. There's an affordability crisis that's set in for this generation when it comes to horns of fire. My dad could afford a horn of fire when he was 22 years old. And now I'm still renting at age 42. Anyway,
that's great.
But okay, this is us. We're sort of embracing our own old manness in our present day. Let's scoot back to 2007 though. And in that context, why does this need to be a period piece? Do you think at that point is it?
Like I said, I don't think it needs to be. I think the analog nature of the problems that they're solving is nice. There's obviously plot details that would not be accurate in 2007 that you can get away with in 1980. How he gets back into the country,
many, I don't think.
The border crossing, really jumps out at you. Stuff like that. There's things like that, but for the most part, there is a timelessness to it. Yeah. And like you said, this could take place in the 50s just as easily as 1980.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that helps with is so that the old man's grousing doesn't come off just as directly as the point of view of the author when there's that little bit of distance added in through the time frame.
I mean, I think it kind of does. It's certainly when you're reading a Cormac McCarthy book. That was kind of a little bit. I mean, he kind of acknowledges that, and it's right there. But it is an old man grousing kind of story, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a story all about people looking back at the past and what people think of the past versus their present. So maybe it helps to have the audience be looking at the past too, kind of more directly.
Okay, I like that. Yeah,
I don't know. That's an idea I had. So anyway, the first scene of this movie, we should talk about.
Sure. The opening montage, because that's really good.
Yeah. Yes. This is becoming Coen Brothers staple of a sort. Just sort of the fade in on the desolate landscape with some voiceover. It's very much Blood Simple. I think maybe the same windmill appears in the opening shots of Blood Simple. And it's the Big Lebowski kind of does the same thing before it takes us to Los Angeles. Fargo doesn't have the voiceover, but it's definitely got the desolation of the landscape shots. And then, the other Coen stuff we've been talking about a lot, the whole opening narration is Sheriff Bell lamenting that he does not understand the plumbing of the universe. Not anymore.
Yep.
That's become more complicated and more sinister than he was raised to believe.
I don't know. He told me he was going to be in hell. Be there in 15 minutes. What did he do with that?
Damn it. Tommy Lee Jones is so good in this. Even just
this is the best Tommy Lee Jones performance. That's my take, by the way. I think this is the best he's ever been in a film. It's amazing. It is everything epic and wonderful about Tommy Lee Jones kind of just crystallized in one perfect performance. He adds so much to the film. He is exactly what they need this character to be and to communicate. It's just awesome work. This is my favorite performance of the film. Yeah.
I am going to disagree with you, but only because for podcast purposes, we should not agree on every single thing about this movie. And so I'm going to say Tommy Lee Jones' best work is Men in Black 2. While also conceding that you are correct on the merits.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm just so excited about him in this movie.
Yeah.
Every single bit that he does. Everything about him in this, just unbelievably strong, powerful stuff. And it is hard to portray a character having a sort of a philosophical crisis and make it feel this immediate and this compelling and this and to have so much empathy for it, especially since I'm not an elderly sheriff, like I can kind of grasp with the core of what he is struggling with this whole film, which is completely inactive. Like
yeah, I was gonna say if I could quibble with your terminology there, it's immediate is not the word I would use because it is sort of it's on a low simmer, and that's so difficult about this performance. Everything else is so immediate, and he has to be in this contemplative, reactive mode. And he's so goddamn watchable, even though he's not. Yes, he's tormented by this in a way, but it's not he doesn't have these big anguished scenes of acting that are going to win you that Oscar. It's just in his eyes. He's never looked more hangdog than this movie.
Yeah, this is the best deployment of the Tommy Lee Jones eye bags ever, all time. Yeah. It's wow. Considering most of his scenes are basically with him and Garrett Dillahunt, talking about the things afterwards, or just a monologue, like just in a sound booth recording dialogue monologue, which we're going to see over, footage of of landscapes in the opening monologue's case, or driving or whatever it comes down to, just stunning stuff. Like you should not be able to end a movie this way. And it's no problem. It's one of the greatest endings ever, all based on him, really, on him pulling it off from the depths of his soul. But it's so subtle and not, it's no big deal. It's a really hard performance to fully appreciate, even like your first, second, third time, I think. And then you're still kind of taken in by the flash of Chigurh or Woody Harrelson even. But by the sixth time you watch this movie, you're just like, God damn, what a performance for the ages. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about this, I guess this brings us to the dialogue in a way. Mm-hmm. And this is a movie that is in some ways defined by minimalism. And I'm going to talk about that later. But what I think gives this staying power over time, what's made it so watchable for me over and over again, is that it is just on a scene by scene basis. It is so watchable, and it's funny. Like it's sort of like The Wire or The Sopranos that are known for being these incredibly dark, powerful dramas, but that reputation obscures just how that darkness lands, in large part because of how funny the writing and the dialogues are on a scene to scene basis in those shows. Mm-hmm. And here, the dialogue in this movie, I want to say, is excellent. It's not what you think of as dialogue forward in a movie. It's not like rat-a-tat, Aaron Sorkin, Preston Sturges repartee. None of the characters are really chatterboxes. They're all kind of taciturn, the three leads. But even though there's not these big back and forth scenes necessarily, every scene is filled with just interesting phrasing, which is a different form of great dialogue writing. There's just turns of phrase in this that stuck with me over the years. Jones saying that Chigurh's, he's got some hard bark on him. Or, it's the dismal tide. The exchange with Dillahunt where talking about it's a mess, ain't it, Sheriff? He says, well, if it ain't, it'll do till the mess gets here.
That line he has when he's sitting in the reflection of the television, drinking milk, the same place that Bardem was, and he's like, "Do you think Llewellyn knows what he's up against?" And he says, "Well, he's seen the same things I have, and it certainly made an impression on me.
Yes.
Is an incredible piece of dialogue.
That is a great piece of dialogue on its own. It's even more incredible when it's delivered while he's seeing his silhouette reflected in the TV with a cowboy hat on.
Wow.
Because it's the image of the American cowboy that's impossible to live up into reality that he's struggling with.
It's just fucking all those little signifiers, all the black hat, white hat imagery this film deploys fairly easily. I mean, it's sort of just like, well, of course, it's slam dunk stuff, but it's never quite focused on or drawn attention to, in the way that it could be, but it's certainly there. Bardem looks like Lee Van Cleef in one of these old movies, but not in any explicit way. They're wearing the sheriffs are wearing the white hats, but it never makes a point of being like, oh, white hat. It's not like the Westworld TV show or whatever. It's there, but it's not explicit.
And like the scenes have really good lines, like I said, but it's almost like they have this strictly enforced diet where like no scene is allowed to have more than 2 snappy lines. Because it's not going to, they don't want to turn it into a Sorkin movie. And, maybe we're still an hour away from getting to Carson Wells and Woody Harrelson. But he's maybe the one character who feels like he could slot into a Sorkin movie in some way. He's got the wonderful line of, the guy asked him, "Did I ask you to sit?" "No, sir, but you struck me as a man who wouldn't want to waste a chair."
It's great.
I don't have any like grand thematic connection with that one. I just think like that's a great line you can put in a lot of movies.
I mean, and we know that the Coens can just like load the movies up with like, "Oh, brother, where art thou?" is nothing but lines like this. It's just they can go to town, have a ball, just fill it top to bottom with these, and they are sparingly used here. Like you said, maybe 2 per scene. It feels like an enforced limit of some kind, and that pays dividends as well. It is the perfect choice for this story.
I can't believe how good they make the audience movie while still managing to make everybody seem so taciturn, like the old Western type. That these are not big talkers.
Now, even the comic relief of this movie, which is Garrett Dillahunt, very funny performance. I don't think he's got a joke. I don't think he's got one bit. Really, it is entirely reactive stuff. I guess it's funny when he says differences.
Yes, that's I said one of my favorite lines. So let's jump ahead a little bit in the plot here. We had the opening narration. We then go to Chigurh, who's been arrested. We don't know why. He kills the deputy and escapes. Goes out, takes deputy's car out, pulls over a guy, kills him with the cattle gun, and takes his car. Then we go to Moss finding the money in the desert, which we've already kind of talked about. And now we're
something I caught this time I never actually noticed before. Right there when he. Chigurh says, "Hold still," and shoots the guy with the cattle prod. That transitions to Llewellyn saying, "Hold still" to the deer. Yeah, 2 sides of the same coin.
And then, of course, he takes the shot on the deer and hits it, but doesn't kill it. So he's he's good, but he's not good enough for what's coming. Is what that portends.
Such an incredible. Every moment in this film has semiotics behind it. Like every single one of them means more than what is on the surface, than what is literally happening. It never drowns in that either, though. I guess because some of it is oblique enough that you don't even notice it until you've watched it many times, and you've got all the surface level ones, and then you're just like, oh, look at that shit too. How about it?
Well, and they've got Roger Deakins here, who's the best to ever do it, who's at the top of his craft here. Yeah. And I think because of that, they can do some of this more loaded imagery. Say the sheriff's cowboy hat reflected in the television there. And they don't have to linger on that stuff as long as a lesser imitator of this movie might feel compelled to do. Make sure you didn't miss anything. This movie is totally fine with you missing anything. It's got plenty.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But it's all there. Like I said, it's layered in.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So Moss takes the money, leaves a dying man in the cab of one of the shot up trucks out there in the desert. And
asking for water.
Yes. Asks for water. He says he doesn't have any. Strange that he doesn't. He's out so far in the bush on his own in the middle of a hot day. But he says he doesn't have any. The guy also asks him in Spanish to close the door because they're hay lobos. there are wolves out there. Another sort of loaded with portent line. But Ma says there aren't any and doesn't shut the door. This is like the maybe the stuff that Breaking Bad took a lot of inspiration from. Is just whether he closed the door or a window shade all the way in one scene is going to be like so important for establishing suspense and moving the action 3 scenes later. But it doesn't do like really big, insert shots of showing things to really underline it for you. It just pulls us along with him.
This is immediately a great performance, like so many of the performances in this film, because it is so. Well, I mean, it's just watching somebody figure things out, which is, when correctly done and deployed properly, one of the most exciting things to watch in a film is somebody figure it out. And no words, basically, just kind of piecing together what has happened, what it portends, what his options are as the thing unfolds, figuring out like, oh, there was a last man standing. Where'd he go? That direction. Well, he's probably going to lie down next to a tree. It's all kind of just. I mean,
yeah.
I guess there is a couple dialogue lines there, but for the most part, it is him figuring shit out, and you see it on his face, and you're immediately like, "Oh, I like this Llewellyn Moss." Yeah, okay. Yeah. Even if
they concede, they concede to like 2 lines of dialogue talking to himself, to hold our hand a little bit. But that's only in this opening. Like, we're not going to get that later on. And then they said, why do people figure things out? That is such, apparently, a compelling thing to watch on screen. A lot of this movie, we're watching 3 iterations of people figure the same shit out. Because after Ma does this, we're going to see Chigurh come to the scene of this massacre in the desert and figure it out all over again and add 2 more bodies to it. And then they're going to see Tommy Lee Jones and Garrett Dillahunt come out and sort out everything, and that there was 2 different murders out here at 2 different times and all that, and that's and then somebody came along, like this truck came along, and then somebody took pried the inspection plate off, and man, there is more artistry and craft to that than I think, even after watching it 15 times, I've really given it credit for.
I mean, it strikes me. I mean, it's immediately impressive though. Like the first time you see it, you're just like, holy shit, look at this film. Right out the gate, Look at this. Yeah. And that doesn't really let up. I mean, there's an obviously a very pronounced anticlimax that we're building to. But aside from that, it is just kind of, it just ratchets along. And, you are one scene into the next and you are following it, even when it makes moves that you're just like, oh, they're going to another motel now? And you're with it the whole trip through there, because that pacing is somehow slow and fast at the same time. It's, dude, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you do it. This is as well edited a film as I can think of. Yeah.
So here's maybe another point of comparison to the Batman, the Robert Pattinson Batman movie.
Okay.
There's one that carries some influence of 2007, at least, if not this movie specifically, in its approach to Batman. Also one that is more self-consciously about its epic status. It feels like it needs the 3-hour runtime of Heat to earn that lineage somehow.
Yeah.
But that's a movie that the pacing of that feels lumpy to me and wouldn't, because there is so much circling back to the same crime scenes over and over again.
I'm on the record as hating the pacing of that film. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I don't remember if I'm on the record on this podcast about that, because I think it might've been something that really struck me on a rewatch after we had recorded that. But just how much I'm sitting there an hour and a half in, like, okay, we're back to the mayor's house for the 3rd time now. We're going back to the Iceberg Lounge for the 4th time. And we're just seeing the same locations over and over again. And yeah, I guess there's a different plot motivation each time. But it never once crossed my mind, like, oh, really? We're going back to this circle of shot up cars for the 3rd time. Like, no, of course I want to see Garrett Dillahunt's impressions of what's going on there or what happened there.
Yeah, man, Dillahunt is probably the performance that I has grown the most for me. Maybe, I mean, just simply because you're so in awe of everyone else, all the heavy hitters, the first few times, and it's slowly kind of real. You're just like, wow, he's really incredible in this. It's such a Coen Brothers type, but it's also sort of like a Tarantino sheriff or maybe a Stephen King novel sheriff. Like there's so many incredible sheriffs that this guy is calling to mind here. And I guess ultimately it's mostly Barney Fife. It's Andy Taylor and Barney Fife explicitly.
I would quibble with calling him a sheriff because I think he's very pointedly a deputy.
Okay. Yes. Right.
He's
he's Robin. Yeah.
Exactly.
But man, and this is an actor that we're Deadwood fans. We fucking love this guy.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. He's the funny one with the context, but of course he can do that.
Yeah, he was on a sitcom for like 6 years around this time, I think.
Right. But one of the most unsung actors I think out there, and a guy deserving of kind of a brilliant career, a lot better roles than he gets. Who always shows up, and holy shit, this might be the best film thing he's ever showed up in. Mostly because he's.
Oh, well, I mean, he was in Assassination of Jesse James the same year,
but he's better in this.
Maybe, yeah, probably. I have to go back and I don't remember his part in that other one very well, so that probably speaks to this being the better role. But yeah, no, I think he's a guy where if you know, and he's kind of a Stephen Root of the following generation. Just. Not necessarily a guarantee that the movie is quality, but he's always going to deliver. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he'll pop up in something like Looper, and you're just like, oh, fucking Garrett Dillahunt scene. Exceptional. Yeah. What was he? What was the last thing I saw him in? He's often.
He was a bad guy in Justified in the final season of that show.
Of course, yes. Uh-huh. A natural thing to do. He was in the Zack Snyder zombie casino movie. That's what the last thing I saw him was. Oh. I hope he's out there doing something good right now.
Yeah, me too. It was okay, but for all my gushing over this movie and how it is one of the most important movies to be ever made, sure. I wouldn't say it's perfect. And I think about the only sort of dart I can lob at it is that there are a couple of supporting performances that feel out of step with the rest of the movie.
You're not going to say... You're not going to say Kelly, are you?
No, I'm going to say Beth Grant as Kelly's mother.
Well, okay, fair, fine.
Kelly, I don't have it.
My best friend, Kelly. Yeah.
That's my girlfriend you're talking about. So let's keep it clean here, buddy. But we'll get to her momentarily. But no, the Beth Grant character, that's jumping ahead too, I suppose. But I will.
It's one scene.
My head canon is that they shot her scene. It was the first thing they shot on this movie, and they were still sort of adjusting to not being like on the set of The Lady Killers.
I'm more generous than that. I mean, this could be a Fargo character, I forget. Does she actually have curlers in her hair in the scene?
Spiritually, yes.
I think I pre-visioned it as a funny line. I think you can have, you got to have some comic hillbillies in your Coen Brothers film, and it is understated in their canon.
This one she is not understated. Most of them are in this.
She's not in The Lady Killers. Come on, that's mean.
I think that performance can go right in there. The other, like the motorist, the chicken coop guy, who gives him an Anton jump towards the end, feels like he is more of a Andy Griffith show speed than the gas station attendant earlier on. Or
they're quoting Andy Griffith a little bit here. I mean, there's a hint at Andy Griffith in the DNA of this, though. There is. Yeah. So I think you can have some hilarious hayseeds, and look, it wouldn't be a Coen Brothers film without him.
Well, okay. So I got two supporting performances that I think are a little too cartoonish for the rest of the movie. That's what I got.
No, I won't even allow it. No, okay. I that's fine. I take your point there. Sure.
So
there's a lot of really great minor roles too, though. There's a lot.
I can cite them so specifically because every other one line thing, the hotel clerk that tells you the applicable rate, and the front desk lady at his RV park that shuts Sugar down. She is right in the line, but she is right on the right side of that line.
He just kind of has to take it. That's one of the funnier moments in the movie. I mean, obviously, the convenience store guy, the coin toss scene is is just an incredible performance. That's wonderful stuff. Who's my favorite? There's one. I want to mention this guy specifically. What was it? I'll remember him at some point.
Well, we're gonna keep going scene by scene. It'll pop up
exactly.
At some point.
Okay.
So, the way we skipped forward to Tommy Lee Jones going to the site, but before that happens, Brolin goes back to the site, the scene of the crime. It's this big mistake.
After we meet Kelly MacDonald. After we meet Carla Jean. Yeah.
Yes, we should meet Carla Jean.
A great scene too. Holy shit, that dialogue is incredible.
Yeah, that's where they're pushing it. They'll give them both two. They both get their two snappy lines, but they're delivering it. So I mean, that communicates so much about their relationship.
Yeah,
and in a way, in very short amount of screen time, and like if you read that on the page, he's basically telling her to shut up and don't ask questions. And you could read that as a very like chauvinist, patriarchal thing, but the way they perform it, it's playful. And just by way of how close he sits to her on the couch, so their arms are pressed up against each other as he cracks his beer, and and she says, "Fine, I'm not even going to ask you about where you've been all day." Blah blah blah. If there was 2 inches of separation between them, you might come out of this with a sense that he kind of hates his wife. But no, he's affectionate towards her, even as he's dismissing her and her questions.
All that stuff in the getting place. Take you into the bedroom and screw you. Big talk. All good. Kelly MacDonald. This could have been a disastrous piece of casting. This could have been so ruinous, but she nails the accent, and it works. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I would go so far as say this is a straight, flat out piece of miscasting. But I love that actress, and she nails it.
Yeah, like I can't think of a more Scottish actress. Her voice. I mean, one of the things that's so amazing about her is her voice, and it flies in the face of this role. Like if she sounded like Kelly MacDonald in this movie, it would break the entire relationship, and she doesn't. She sounds correct. She sounds exactly as she should. And still has an interesting voice. It's great. It's really
that's
wonderful.
The incredible part. Because like even if she had, it's not just a question of like suppressing her Scottish accent, right? Like if she was somebody who just had a generalized American accent that she could put on, that
Dr. Strange voice, maybe.
Yes, kind of.
House,
a Cumberbatch, something mid-Atlantic. It would still find face. She's doing a specifically Texan accent, but not so much, that it's a caricature. That's a hard thing. I don't know that I, as an American who grew up not very far from Texas, that I could modulate my Texan drawl if I could pull one off to not be cartoonish in the way that she does here.
I go so far as to say she's more cartoonish as a Scottish immigrant in Boardwalk Empire than she is in this film. I
believe she's playing Irish immigrant in that, actually.
Is she? Yeah. Well, it is cartoonish.
It's just she nails it. It's incredible. I still don't think there's any reason to have made her like do all this, backwards and in heels.
She's so good in her one scene with Josh Brolin, though. She's so good. It totally sells the relationship and the movie.
They've got 3 scenes together in a phone call.
Okay, sure. 3 scenes.
Sorry.
3 scenes?
Yeah. He comes home this time when he comes home with full buckshot, and then he puts her on the bus.
Right, the bus. Okay, fair enough.
Another just, scene with a couple of great lines of dialogue. Yeah. But so anyway, he... Just to move the plot along.
Oh, Jesus, sorry. Yeah, we're hitting an hour. Okay.
He, does not tell her what's happened. They go to sleep, and he wakes up in the middle of the night, sort of having a pang of conscience about leaving the guy who got shot and dying with no water in the car, and decides to go out and bring the guy, a dying man, a drink of water. A sort of explicitly futile gesture of humanity.
This is the stupidest thing he does in the movie, without question. It is also his save the cat moment. It is the engine that starts the film, essentially. Like, well, the movie's already pretty gripping at this point, but this kicks the plot into gear. Is him doing this, and yeah, it's like the guy who Llewellyn Moss from 20 minutes later in the film would not make this mistake. This is still sort of babes in the wood kind of moments, where it's not quite as real as it's going to be.
Yeah, and it's kind of feeling like he can do what he's done and retain more humanity,
right?
Than perhaps he'll be attempting to once we get to the second motel shootout.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. He still thinks he can be untouched by this and still get the money, I guess.
Yeah, and for as dumb as this is, the movie gets away with it in a way by the character is very self-aware about.
Yeah,
she asks him what he's doing, and he says, well, "I'm fixing to do something dumber than hell, but I'm going to do it anyway." And It's like, okay, that now we're on board. I'm not mad at this guy. He's not a scientist in Prometheus that I'm like, what are you doing? What did you think you were doing here?
Yeah, well, this shows that he has a moral compass, such as it is, and everyone in the film does to some extent or in some way have a version of what they want to do or what they believe in that guides their principles. I don't know. The moral compass of this film is a long conversation, but this is his, such as it is, and that it drives his actions in a way that makes sense and is fairly traditional. It's you would like to think you'd give the dying man water who wants water, as futile as that gesture is in actuality. It seems like the nice thing to do. You would get Paragon points in Mass Effect for doing this.
Thank you for putting it in a very accessible way for all of our listeners. But yes, that's exactly right. So now he drives back out in the middle of the night, parks his pickup truck up on a ridge, just sort of beautifully backlit by the moon, which is going to be important here momentarily because this is something that this movie's unparalleled at. Is the geography of the action and suspense sequences is just immaculate. You know exactly where everything is. And so he goes down there and sees that the door he left open's been closed. And that immediately, raises his spider sense. And he looks back up, and now a second pickup truck is parked next to his up on the ridge in the moonlight. And that is just such an immediately like jump scare image. Like it's just sitting there. You don't see anything else. It's just another car in silhouette, but it's immediately terrifying. And then of course he hides a little bit, and you can see that now a couple of men in silhouette slashing the tires of his pickup truck and getting into theirs, lighting up the big roof like flood lamps on their mount on their pickup truck, which is another just great like sort of monster image. It's almost like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. It's this beast that now has to be that has to be escaped.
Right. I mean, and it's the sort of dawning realization that Moss has as we have it. Like they know he's there. Can they see him? Yeah. Yes, they can see him. Okay. Oh shit. And then it goes from there. And it's that sort of immediate, like, how do you solve this problem kind of thing? And of course, this ends up with the pitball chase, the dog chase into the river, which is one of the most memorable things in this film for me. It's just such a terrifying and kind of upsetting moment. But it's unlike anything I've really seen in a movie for some reason at this point. I've never seen a dog chase handled in this way. So specifically with the timing of outpacing the dog out of the water long enough to get the gun ready. Crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Just the way that he knows what he's doing at all points. And so enough to like, he's not going to blindly shoot at the dog in a panic. He's going to clear the chamber and like dry it out a little bit so it doesn't misfire. And that, of course, for our sake of the audience, is going to draw it out to the last second so he doesn't get the shot of until the dog is leaping in the air at his throat.
Yeah, great stuff. And we've already seen a dead pit bull. The bad guys killed that pit bull. This pit bull is killed by our ostensible hero, and it's a dog. We're watching him kill a dog. And yes, it's a dangerous, scary dog that is going to kill him, but it's still, immediately gray area. It's immediately kind of a moral compromise in a way. Um,
I'm as much of a dog person as anything, but I didn't feel it that way. Like, this is a war beast. I don't.
he kills a dog. It's not nothing that he kills a dog on camera.
He's being attacked by the dog. It is a murder
scary
dog.
It is a murder dog. It's frightening. So fair enough. But
it's not even it's not the beast from the Sandlot. That's like intruding on its lair. It is sicked on him to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the drug lord killer dog. So I suppose so.
Right.
But still, I mean, we're in the gray area now, most decisively. I mean, I guess ever since he takes the money.
Yeah.
Hey, do you think he saves himself if he doesn't take the money and just calls the police right away? I guess he does, right? I guess that he's probably not important anymore.
Nobody has any reason to come after him at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he saves him. He probably gets away with it if he just doesn't go bring the water, because then
is it that that's what I was really getting to. Is it that simple? Like, if he had just took it and left, they never would have found him? I don't know. There's a tracker. He would have. So I guess they would have found him.
But he would have found that. They've kind of established the tracker does not work at long distances, and he would have found it probably sooner than later even. But the thing that they, because they have his truck there, they are then able to look at his registration or whatever. When Shigeru comes here a scene later, he'll pry off the inspection plate from the door. So when he goes back to the trailer to tell his wife that, we got to get out of here, people are going to be after me now, and he explains to her so succinctly and directly, it's like, it's 2 a.m. Sunday, like in 7 hours the courthouse is going to open up, and at 9 o'clock the courthouse is going to open up, and at 9:30 somebody's going to come here right after the courthouse opens up. They're going to be there with the inspection papers to figure out who that car belongs to, and at 9:30 they're going to be here. And like, that explains so much to us. He knows all that implicitly, so he is like, it's great. He's a little bit smarter than us, which is perfect for an audience identification figure.
Yeah, perfect. He's a perfect film noir protagonist. He really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I hesitate to call this an underrated performance, because it basically gave Josh Brolin his career, such as it is now. I mean, he's been working in high profile projects ever since. This was the beginning, really. He was showing up as fourth lead in The Hollow Man prior to this. That was a big role for him. He was in the wilderness until this came around, and then all of a sudden he's the man. But even still, I feel like this performance is quiet, and in a way, and he's up against Tommy Lee Jones and Javier Bardem.
It's underrated. The way it allows to be underrated is because it's specifically overshadowed by the Shigeru performance being so much bigger and more theatrical.
And he's quiet, reactive, and smart, and an audience identification character. It does all these things perfectly, and I think it was nice at the time too that we really didn't have much of a relationship with Josh Brolin. He felt very much, like an everyman. Like he really was a guy who just kind of like a normal person who finds himself kind of in this world of monsters and sort of philosophical avatars running around. He's not Tom Bell and he's not Shigeru. He's just this guy. He just happened to show up at the place.
In the discussions around this movie, I see this idea come up a lot. That is about how he is. I mean, and it's in the text of the movie. It's what Woody Harrelson tells him word for word, basically. That you're not cut out for this. This is he's too regular of a guy, but he's not. Llewellyn Moss is not a regular guy. The book establishes that he was a sniper in Vietnam. They don't specifically say the word sniper in the movie, but it's like he is an enormous badass on his own merits in this movie. He's not Joe. He's not an everyman necessarily, and yet
he feels like
we can accept him as such. Yeah,
he's
not doing anything superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, he's how we think we'd like to. It's how we would like to think we would behave.
Yes.
In this situation, even though I would fuck it up so much harder. I might not go back with the water, but I would have done 10 things that would have ruined me before then anyway.
Right.
So, there's that. Even the water thing, though, that sort of, as foolhardy as it ultimately is, it's kind of, there's a magnanimousness to that. There's a,
It's still him being a little better than I would be.
Exactly.
In that scenario,
So yeah, I mean, I think that works, and I think that it's kind of classic Hollywood in a way. Like you would see this character succeed in the old westerns,
sure,
in the original versions of the westerns, but he's not in one of those. He's in new western.
Well, even in a lot of crime movies, you would see this.
Sure,
that's what you would see. And like I said, that is, I think it's one of the things. Kind of we talk about comedy performances and how they get underrated.
Yeah,
I think this performance gets underrated because the task is to make this all look easy and naturalistic, and he succeeds at that so much that I think people acknowledge that this is what his great role, but I still think they underrated a bit how good it is, how difficult it is.
He was not nominated, I believe, which given 2007, I'm not going to worry too much about that, especially when for the obvious reasons that no, you nominate. Bardem's getting, and he's not really the lead role. I mean, I guess he would be. I don't know.
Well, yeah, as I say, even if you're not up against Daniel Day-Lewis and Brad Pitt or whatever and Jesse James, it's like the nature of the switcheroo here and the anticlimax, the psycho-ness of this makes it hard to place this is like leading role question mark. It doesn't feel right to call him a supporting role either, though.
I mean, he's in service of the film. Like, this is kind of like he's at the exact right size, celebrity-wise, to be completely in service of the film and not bringing extra persona beyond just sort of, the American cowboy mythology that Josh Brolin, at this point in his career, just kind of has on tap into it.
So he does after this, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, after this, certainly. But he's also a movie star after this, He's somebody you cast and has a name that you can sell a project on. You can get him to play Jonah Hex after this.
Yeah, I mean, that was the dream. He was hoping to parlay this role into a Jonah Hex type project.
I mean, probably,
anyway,
right? He probably got paid way more for Jonah Hex than for this.
Oh, probably. So he, tells his wife that she has to get on a bus and go stay with her mother in Odessa. Get another just a couple nice lines as he's putting her on the bus, and she says, "I got a bad feeling about this." He goes, "Well, I got a good one, so that'll even out." I think that's straight out of the book too, but it's also just like, that's sort of ground level repartee that could happen in the real world. It's not necessarily movie repartee, but it is still interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'll try not to belabor that in every single scene from here on out.
It's always good though. It's always kind of notable and be like, oh, that's a hell of an exchange. Happens over and over in this.
And after that, we get. I may be reversing the order here, but Chigurh goes out to the site of the massacre himself with a couple of nondescript white collar criminal guys. Kind of takes the lay of the land, figures out what happened, and shoots both of them, and takes their transponder tracker thing. I think before that, even is when he went to the gas station and did the friendo scene where he makes the guy flip a coin for his life. Well,
that scene. I mean, I don't know. I almost like. What do you say about that scene? Shit.
I'll say one thing that I don't think has been said before. I noticed this time watching it that the gas station there sells happy face balloons behind the counter. It made me think that the brothers from Raising Arizona should have come to this gas station.
It is
get their funny shades.
Crazy how much this resembles that Raising Arizona scene. Like it's insane that they both exist and that this was McCarthy. I almost feel like was McCarthy doing Raising Arizona in this like it's crazy, right?
Well, even more so when Chigurh goes to Moss's trailer and searches it. Yeah. The trailer is laid out just like H.I.'s trailer from Raising Arizona. He stands in the doorway like the exact same blocking as the Biker of the Apocalypse. I'm pretty sure the Biker of the Apocalypse looks at himself in the reflection of the TV even.
Yeah. The domestic bliss between Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter is very reminiscent of Brolin and McDonald in this. Their whole deal seems to be the same in a lot of ways. And it
when it
feels
cuts
like
to
a
him-
response to Raising Arizona somehow. I don't
Yeah.
get it, man. I don't fucking get it.
when he's lying in bed and makes a decision to go give him the water and just goes, all right. But he's lying in bed exactly like it's the same shot as Nicolas Cage lying in bed in Raising Arizona a couple of different times in that movie. Like they're reusing
Crazy.
so many like specific shots in this that I now notice watching all these in a row. How many of them like oh, I recognize this exact same like thing from somewhere else.
Well, I mean, when it gets into
that's without getting into call forwards.
When it gets into like the Lone Bike or the Apocalypse, as a sort of a proto version of Chigurh is when it gets really crazy, though. That's when it becomes just insane. Like it doesn't make sense that these characters are paired so incredibly, but they are. It's the wildest thing. Wild thing. And I mean, I always kind of saw that, I guess. You watch Raising Arizona, it's like, well, this guy's kind of like Chigurh, actually. But, watching him in succession in this way with the separation of a little over 20 years, I guess, between them. Almost exactly 20 years. Wild. Crazy.
You couldn't really do it by design. There's no way that Cormac McCarthy was riffing consciously on Raising Arizona.
No way. Right? No way at all. But I almost wonder because it's too perfect.
I almost wonder, like, did they get to the trailer set and realize, like, this feels so familiar? We've been here before, and like laid it out exactly the same way. I don't know, but anyway, that when Chigurh is leaving there is when he has the he tries to intimidate the front desk lady at the RV park into telling him where Moss works, and she is just not having it. I love that little interaction so much. And it is also kind of fun, like key. The thing that Chigurh character is doing here is he's constantly right on the verge of being an explicitly supernatural force of evil. And then every third or fourth scene, they show you a little foot of clay that he can be stymied. He can be hurt. He can be slowed down. He, unlike the Lone Bike of the Apocalypse, is going to blast that little lizard off the rock from his motorcycle. Chigurh is going to shoot at a bird on a bridge out the window, but he's going to miss.
I couldn't believe that, man. I couldn't believe that he's doing the fucking killing animals on past drive-bys. Like that's doesn't get more explicit than that, That,
and yet, straight out of the book, that is a beat that Cormac McCarthy included for some reason.
What the fuck? That's so weird. Unbelievable. Hard to. How do you even respond to that? It's hard to take its measure.
It is. So, man, I don't know. I guess we already did kind of go past the coin flip scene. I don't know how.
Well, what do you say, man? It's one of the best scenes in movies. It's one of the best scenes that has been in a film, and it's an incredible piece of performance and writing. It is. I mean, it's basically just two-shot situation. Nothing flashy. It's just writing, performance. That's it, and it's the signature scene of the entire filmography, perhaps.
And people will cite that for you as one of the most intense, like scariest scenes of suspense in movie history, and that is remarkable. Partly because it's the bad guy talking to a one-off character who does not matter to the plot at all. Like we have seen any number of movies, there's probably, if I were to watch Twins with DeVito and Schwarzenegger, at this point in the runtime of the movie, there's probably a scene where the bad guy kills a civilian to establish his dastardly bona fides. Right at this moment.
I think it actually is a scene where it's like, well, the only problem is you guys have seen my face. I think it actually happens in Twins.
Amazing that was what I pulled for no reason whatsoever. I haven't seen that movie in 25 years. Yeah. But like the stakes of this scene are nothing as far as the movie is concerned.
Yeah.
And yet it is so intense and so scary. They have such mastery of their craft. They could make us watch an empty plastic packaging of a piece of peanuts unfold on the counter for 2 seconds, and we're just like,
I love it from the perspective of this guy, this character actor who I've never seen in any other movie. He's just a dude running a convenience store. It's wonderful to see this performance. He's so I mean, the sense you get of watching this guy is like, one day I met the devil. You know, this is like a story this guy's telling the rest of his life in the making. And again, he's never really sure what happened, whether he was actually in danger, if it was all in his mind. We of course know, no, it was, it really was a coin toss for your life, man. Yeah. But for him, he never, even in the moment, like he's aware of it, but he's kind of in denial of it throughout the whole scene. It's fucking awesome.
As you would have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
You couldn't you can't acknowledge that in that moment. I think that just encourages the guy to kill you.
I believe that is what Carla Jean does later.
Yeah.
As that result.
Yeah. I love that guy's performance so much because it feels like the character, like almost like the actor, but the character starts off the scene and gets 30 seconds into it. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I thought I was in The Lady Killers. What, what movie am I in? Or what world am I in, I guess is the way the character went. So, that's the vibe there. The thing that I would hone in on for this scene specifically is, it actually sticks in my craw for a movie that got Best Director, Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Acting. I'm still angry. How did this not win Best Sound Mixing or Editing? The Board Ultimatum won both. Like, I think that movie has good sound design, probably, but
I imagine
compared to that, this is, we haven't talked about how there's like no score to this movie. Like, right. It's a strangely silent movie, even as it is also very much a vibes movie.
Yeah.
Like, the vibe rules this movie. And that, the main, tool in your arsenal for crafting a vibe would be the score. And there's almost no score to this whole thing.
I mean, it's tempting to be like, well, actually, a no score is a vibe all of its. And I guess that's somewhat true, but I don't know. Have you seen many movies without a score? Usually it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
As often as not. Yeah. It just kind of doesn't work most of the time. I don't know. I think of like some of the old Universal horror movies. They just, we had live accompaniments. We don't anymore. So there's no actual soundtrack. And it just sort of sucks. It's like watching a recording of theater in a sense. And
you need like a mastery of room tone to fill that space somehow. Because they need to be sitting not in total silence, but still feel like they're in a space and things are happening even as things are happening quietly. The wrong lesson to take from this would be that removing music automatically makes your thriller more intense. But I don't think that would be the case.
No.
Unless you need one, performances that are this great and this intense across the board. And two, you need sound design that's like completely on point in every other respect. So Chigurh does not have a musical theme, but what he has is just very faintly, like almost subliminally, the sound of like trains in the distance in the back of his scenes.
Oh man. Okay. I didn't actually have that verbalized. And as you were saying it, I kind of heard it. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's incredible stuff. It's almost like I don't even have the vocabulary or understanding of this part of the craft to really explain what I'm experiencing or seeing or hearing as this plays out. And I think, like the sound of distant trains or traffic of some kind, that's I couldn't have pulled that, but it's a tough one, man. Sometimes, you just kind of have to stand in awe of the thing.
Indeed.
It's just a little hard to explicate it correctly. Yeah.
But from here on out, after Chigurh comes through the RV park and then Jones and Dillahunt come through after him and sort of see his MO of knocking out the deadbolt and have their little exchange about like, what should we circulate the APB on? Looking for a man who has recently drunk milk. We're now like the chase is on at this point. Everybody knows they're after somebody else. Everybody knows they're being pursued. And now we're going to get into our series of hotel rooms and showdowns based around hotel rooms. And this is probably as good a place as any to break. And we'll come back and do the back half of this movie shortly.
Yeah, this was never really going to be a one and done episode here. There's kind of too much. This is too totemic and important and significant of a film for all the things that we kind of want to say and express about it, and just honestly to luxuriate in it a little bit. You know, this is a pleasure to talk about this film and think about it. So yeah, we're going to get to the back half of No Country for Old Men in another episode. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
I was just
See you there.
speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters of this world.
There, where the tie's back.